What's up, everybody? This is your host, Jackson Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Walk On Mentality podcast. This week in the studio, we have the man himself, Mr. Peter Rushford. Peter, thank you for joining me.
Of course, thrilled to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. I've been in Austin for coming up on 2 years now, and I remember the first time that I had some Shār mix at Whole Foods, and I was like, this is different. Having some conversation with you, I know that it's different. But tell me just a little bit about what the Shār Trail Mix is.
Yeah, so we are a farm-to-table snack food company, and I'm not from the food business. I grew up in Vermont, which is to say I grew up outside and developed a love of the outdoors. There's a lot of connected points that kind of led me to this. But what makes us unique and why I created the brand in the first place was I like eating really healthy food. And I think in the snack portion, it's hard to find healthy snacks that also taste amazing. We've all had those bars that, are, reasonably or maybe even very healthy, but they often taste like the box they were shipped in. And it's like it's food.
Right.
It should taste amazing. So that's our aim. Is we're a taste first, healthy snack food company.
Yeah, and growing up outdoors in Vermont, I know you're one of 9 siblings. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, 2 sets of twins. I have a twin brother.
Oh, no kidding.
Another set of twin boys. A year and a half after we were born.
Wow.
And then yeah.
So no shortage of activity, running around, sports, I would imagine, were big in your upbringing. I mean, what was it like growing up in a house of 9 kids?
Well, I guess thankfully my dad loved the outdoors as well, and loved all sorts of sports. I mean, he played in local little football league, touch football, flag football leagues. He liked to run. His passion was skiing, which that definitely translated down to all of us. I developed, I think I sucked less at running than some of the others. I tried football.
Wasn't your thing?
Well, I was in high school 5'10" and 140 pounds soaking wet.
So no.
No, I got up through flag football, and then I love football, but I was way better at running than I was at football.
Yeah. So you mentioned skiing. I know skiing was a big part of your life. So, as you grew in age, me, I played football growing up. So my only perspective on sports is, playing peewee ball, going up, playing high school, and then starting the recruitment process. I don't want to share too much of your story. That's for you to share, but I know that you became pretty good at skiing. So what was the process of kind of climbing those ranks from the time you were young and first started skiing to getting to, the point where your skiing career took you?
I think so much of it comes from passion, like just loving. I loved skiing.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something in my makeup too that when my siblings will tell you that when I sort of get into something, it's sort of this very intentional, deep dive, and I can see this sort of these stepping stones of things that I've sort of become attracted to. After skiing as a middle-aged adult, I became a competitive runner.
Mm-hmm.
Then got into windsurfing, and it was a very all-consuming thing. So skiing was my thing, as a middle schooler and then into high school, and I just loved it. And then, we after graduating high school, had a chance at, training and then competing in a qualifying contest to go on the pro tour, and my twin brother and I actually both did that, and then that led to a 5-year long career competing on the pro tour.
Wow. So forgive me, I know nothing about skiing really beyond what it looks like going down a mountain, but what does it mean to compete on the pro tour? Is that going to the Olympics, or are those two different things?
Two different things. It's a lot like the pro golf tour or tennis, where you
Okay,
travel
yeah.
around to different cities, compete in tournaments. So in this case, we were traveling to different ski areas. There was a season-long tour, if you will. In this case, it would start in the East Coast and then, work its way out west. Sort of leapfrogging. Roughly a contest every month, and you just showed up and competed for prize money in 3 different events. But then there was also an overall. If you competed in all 3, that also qualified you to get money potentially in the overall. Which we were like, well, we're going to do that because
Right.
we want to try to win everywhere or earn everywhere. And it was an unbelievable experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And this was right out of high school?
Yeah, as a 19-year-old.
Wow.
Until I was 23, headed towards 24, yeah.
What was your favorite ski destination?
I had a lot. I like different resorts in America for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a handful that are just revered, sort of known to be some of the best resorts in the country and arguably the world.
Mm-hmm.
Places like Vail, Colorado, Aspen, Lake Tahoe has 2 or 3 major, ski resorts around the lake. Sun Valley,
Mm-hmm.
Banff up in Canada. I grew up learning how to ski in Vermont. I haven't mentioned a single resort there.
Right.
It's a rough place to learn how to ski. I really am glad that I did because the conditions are way better out west than they are in the east. So if you have a option, when I sort of had the option to go one or the other, I was like, well, of course we're going to go out west. The snow's and the weather's better out there. It's just icy, windy, cold.
Right.
You just have to, it's more brutal. Like you just, guys like Bodie Miller, pretty sure he grew up in New Hampshire. He's arguably the best male ski racer. He just got inducted into the Ski and Snowboard Hall of Fame.
Wow. And now, is that somebody who's skiing now, or is that somebody?
He's retired.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But just crazy, highly decorated. Like he's just won all kinds of World Cup and Olympic medals, and it's just he was a total badass in his day. Anyway.
And is the sport, how fast can you get down the mountain, or is there more technicality to it?
So it depended. We actually competed on the freestyle tour. Freestyle skiing hadn't yet become an Olympic sport, so there was only a pro tour. And then, literally 3 years after we retired, it became an Olympic sport, which is we missed. Who knows if what could or might have happened, but so now moguls, the mogul skiing that used to be one of the events, and then the aerials were the guys put skis on and do today like quadruple twisting, triple flips. It's
insane.
Nowhere near that level of complexity, but everything evolves over time.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, it's become a pretty popular Olympic sport since then.
So from 19, 23, 24, you're skiing. Was college in the equation at any point in time, or what was that side of the house like?
That was kind of a trade. Most of my siblings, we had started a kind of a business, a skiing entertainment show that we produced and then performed as a pre-season thing, and then the tour, kind of we pack all that up, and when winter arrived, I get so when we kind of retired from competing, decided to form an independent sales agency representing brands in the ski industry, because that's where all of our contacts were. We actually ended up going to school and taking some really specific classes like business law,
right?
Expository writing, things we knew we'd need to be better at business. But I never literally kind of, not that you don't have time, but it was just one thing after another where we were just in the fast lane.
Yeah.
Felt like we had we were competing, and then that was all encompassing. We were training year round, traveling, and then when we started our sales agency, it was just
You're starting a business.
80-hour work weeks. It's just nonstop. So anyway, I did not graduate college. Just took some incremental courses to, I guess accumulated some credits, but
That all you needed.
yeah,
Got what you needed.
got what we needed.
So was it you, your twin brother, and then how many of your other siblings were involved, or was it just you two?
It was just us two. We actually met another skier at our very first pro contest, and kind of struck up a friendship, and we ended up traveling. It was like, hey, why don't we all travel together on the tour? We had no money. I mean, literally living in a van, kind of going from contest to contest, scraping together. I mean, anyway, and so this third guy, and that led to a 20-year-long partnership.
Wow.
The three of us. So we competed together, coached. We were coaches of the number 1 amateur team in the country out of Killington, Vermont. During that 5 years, that was our home base. So when we weren't at a contest, we, were training ourselves and coaching these amateur kids. Some of whom went on to become Olympic athletes. And then, so it was the three of us, and we started all of those businesses together.
Wow, really cool. So now, I mean, knowing what you know now, looking back, what would you tell that 24-year-old Peter before you made the decision to just go straight into, like, kind of just figuring it out as you went from a business standpoint? Like, would you have any advice to give that 24-year-old version of yourself?
Yeah, I don't think like a lot of us, I didn't know what I really wanted to do as a, rising senior getting ready to graduate high school. Thought, if I go to college, maybe I'll just figure it out. But I really hadn't figured out what I really, wanted to do. So, felt I understood the risk
right
then. But I guess what I would tell myself back then is it doesn't have to be you don't have to figure out your life then. Just try to kind of jump in and get started, and it's gonna, as long as you're passionate, you work hard, persistent, all those things, that it takes to kind of be successful at anything. It'll probably work out pretty well, and it may not be the last. Here I am, practically Colonel Sanders age, launching a snack food company, like pretty far along in life.
Right.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's impactful, right? Like people wait for everything to align perfectly, or the perfect idea, or the perfect business plan, or they want everything to be perfect before they jump into whatever their business idea is.
That's right.
But it's like you got to take that first step and understand that you can change your mind and pivot and do whatever you want as you build, as long as you have that passion that's driving you forward.
Yeah, and it's sure. I mean, look, from doing starting your own business. I mean, it's some people cut out for it, others not, and no judgment there. It's just, but I think I've always felt like I wanted to be independent. I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. Succeed or fail, and I think it definitely takes some pretty degree of risk tolerance as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But nothing ventured, nothing gained, right?
Right. I want to hear more about the living out of a van and just going and doing shows and kind of having that home base. What was that experience like?
It was I think a pretty we just didn't have any choice. Like, if we wanted to go, that was the only way we were gonna be able to do it, was to kind of fix up this van and throw our stuff in, and we couldn't afford to do it any other way. So it was,
right.
I don't know how we might not have been able to compete on the tour that year if we didn't. But it was, we were 19. I mean,
right.
Getting to travel all over the country and meet all these other, amazing, very talented, skilled competitors, and, just being a whole part of that freestyle tour was I mean, it's just a fantastic experience.
Right.
But I mean, we were just scraping by, literally. I mean, there was nothing fancy about it. I mean, we would spend. I mean, most of the nights we slept in the van. Not, we'd pull into a parking lot. It's like 8 degrees outside. We don't leave the van on all night. Just had sleeping bags and going head to toe. Because there was actually another guy traveling with us that first year, so there were 4 of us.
Wow.
And went from Vermont to California, and then it was a little testy.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, actually, on the way back, there were moments when close quarters, some tempers flared at times.
Right.
Which is probably predicted.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this: would you change a thing about that specific experience and journey?
No, none of it. I think those moments in your life where you have to really dig in and you don't, just kind of make do, and you have to sort a lot out, like how are we gonna eat the next meal today? And I mean, it wasn't quite, like we have no money to get food today, but we didn't, we were kind of earning enough, or maybe through what we had saved as we had enough money to kind of make it without, but at that level, like we couldn't have done, staying in hotels or anything. But I wouldn't change any of it, because I think those times in your life where you have to sacrifice and do without, you learn to appreciate when you do have things, when things are better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So moving beyond that, or I guess in terms of what you were doing, sales agency work, what were you actually doing? Were you selling? Yeah, that's the question. What were you doing?
Yeah, great question. So if you walked into an outdoor store, I mean, it started off as more ski equipment lines, but if you walked into that, morphed over to the outdoor industry. So it was 4 years kind of with ski companies that we represented, but then that morphed over to more outdoor brands. So if you walked into a store like REI and looked around at the kind of products they sell, those were the brands that I represented.
Okay.
So, and brands that you guys may have heard of, like Teva, UGG, the sheep shampoo company, Merrill, makes outdoor hiking shoes and casual shoes. Asics on the running side, Vibram, they make amazing outsoles for all kinds of brands worldwide. Anyway, so those were Keen Footwear. Those were the kinds of brands that I represented, and it was that was a 37-year career, working in the outdoor industry, and that played a huge role in Shar.
Yeah. So for that whole 37-year time frame, you were running your business though with your partners.
That's right.
Okay, so you've been an entrepreneur since day one.
Pretty much. I think the last time I had a paycheck was when I was a junior in high school, working at the Wobbly Barn restaurant in downtown Rutland, part-time.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it that way, but yeah.
That's funny. So 37 years doing the sales agency work, enjoying it, fully ingrained in the outdoor industry, which is an industry that you love. At what point in time did you decide maybe you wanted to do less sales agency work and find something else that you wanted to pour your passion into?
Yeah, great question. I think, after 37 years, and then if you remember, this kind of stepping stone, like it's not like I get bored, but something new might catch my attention, not usually 37 years later. Mm-hmm. There were things along the way with the work side of it, but I think I know now I was ready for something new. Mm-hmm. And then because I had been representing these, what became iconic, they were startups. Like we were with Teva, the sports sandal company, when they were a startup, and with them for 10 years. So I had a ringside seat to see how these, young startups became some of the most iconic brands
Right.
in the outdoor industry. UGG was Decker's Outdoor bought UGG. Nobody knew what UGG was. They bought UGG for $22 million in 1996.
Wow.
Today it's a $2.4 billion brand powerhouse for them. I mean, just staggering
Right.
rise to. But they were just a little scrappy startup, like I guess everybody was at some point, even all the big brands. But yeah, so I think I was, ready for, and I'd always represented these, but none of them were mine,
Right.
right? I mean, so I was sort of helping them become very successful and got to learn a lot sitting in sales meetings twice a year and seeing what the challenges were. I didn't know that I was absorbing all that for this, but it sure came in handy when I decided to,
Right.
think about launching Share.
Yeah, I that was going to be my question was, how much did you learn just like you just said, having that courtside seat for those brands? I mean, pretty much every brand that you named off, I know of in that space, and I'm not some like wild outdoorsman, but the fact that I know, Teva, Keen, I think a lot of people know UGG, but like these are huge brands, like you said, and it's really cool that you've been able to see from their very early stages kind of that growth. So have you taken a lot of those lessons that you've learned and applied them in your business?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I think, given the 37 years I had with those ringside seats and being connected to, not all outdoor brands, got to become big, iconic outdoor brands. There's a lot
Right.
that kind of, fail or don't make it or, kind of meander along at a really low level. They're just there, but they're not the major players. And so there were 5 companies that had that kind of hockey stick graph of growth that I got to be a part of. So, I mean, it was an amazing, breadth and width of experience that I was able to, pick up on. And I think that played a huge role. Like when I said, that's what I meant earlier when I said, I'm not from the food industry. I'm from the outdoor industry, but now you can kind of see how that that gave me a very, very unique perspective on how I might apply that to a food company.
Right. So are your partners still in the agency world? No.
No,
Everybody's moved on.
Yeah, the agency side, after 20 or 21 years, folded back in 2000, like a long time ago.
Yeah. So is that when Share began?
No, I came up with the idea back in 2013. So competitive runner as a middle-aged adult. I trained and raced at every distance from a mile, which was my race of choice in the high school, but I never felt like I'd really done as well as I could have done to the marathon. But then I started getting injured I was, in my late 40s, I was trying to run like I was in my 20s. And my body was like, dude, no.
Right.
We're not going to let that happen. And started, Achilles, it was just, it was too one-dimensional as well. I mean, after 12 years of competitive running, I just didn't feel very balanced. I mean, you're a high-level performing athlete, like how important it is to sort of have a diversity in your workouts so that that helps prevent injury.
Right.
And running is probably the most you have your gait and that's how you run and anyway, so I took a year off to try to figure out, I needed a new fitness regime. And took a year off, evaluated a bunch of different things, and I right before I decided on what I was going to do next for fitness, one of our tech reps for Keen said, hey, you should try eating paleo. It's a really healthy way to eat. This is like before it had become a very big thing. And I was like, oh, I'll try it. I mean, I don't consider it it's a way to eat.
Right.
For me, more than it was like a diet.
Right.
And then 2 months later, I settled on CrossFit and yoga, and had already started eating paleo. And that led to a 5-year, like the most fit I've ever been in my life as a 55-year-old.
Yeah.
I've never felt more fit. It was like the perfect storm of fitness for me. 3 days a week of intense CrossFit. I competed in the CrossFit Games first 2 years. Not the finals, just anybody. I mean, it starts. Well, I didn't even make it to regionals, but anyone can compete, which I think is really
the
cool.
Open.
The Open.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. The Open's awesome.
Yeah, the Open's awesome, and you can see how you stack up against the world, which is kind of cool. And then 3 days a week of vinyasa flow yoga, and I took 1 day off. So pretty quickly, because paleo in those high intensity workouts, I was starving. I just needed a lot of fuel replenishment. I was like, I need a snack I can graze on all day.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's easy. Trail mix has been my go-to snack since I was a 19-year-old pro skier and an outdoor. Like, it is the quintessential snack.
Right.
Kind of most famous snack in the outdoors. But the problem was, everything I found in the stores was dumbed down with cheap ingredients, too much sugar, too much salt. It either didn't taste good, wasn't healthy, or both.
Right.
And so I started mixing my own. And it was like, I wonder if I could turn that into a brand someday, but not a regular brand.
Right.
Like some of the brands I'd witnessed in the outdoor industry. And there was one in particular that was kind of I'm going to use that playbook applied to snacks.
What playbook was that?
So I was at the outdoor retail. I love this story.
Yeah.
Oh, I was at the outdoor retail trade show 19 years ago when Yeti launched, another Austin brand. Take a guess what the average price of a cooler was before Yeti arrived.
I would say $35, $40.
Yeah, $40. And so, Igloo with inexpensive styrofoam and Coleman, kind of making just a basic cooler. That was the market for coolers. $40 average price of all coolers sold. These guys showed up with a $300 version of a $40 market.
Right.
I had been in the industry for 17 years, kind of in it. I still looked down the aisle and went, won't see those clowns next year, because clearly they're insane.
Right.
And the rest, as they say, is history. They've gone on to become one of the most successful badge brands in America. But they didn't invent the cooler, but they kind of perfected it. Really, their aim was to make an extraordinary version of an ordinary thing. And that gap between ordinary and extraordinary is the most important thing. Like, the farther you can get away with the gap, the bigger the gap, the better. They didn't invent the cooler, and we didn't invent trail mix. I spent 4 years working on this one recipe to elevate it as far away from ordinary as I could get.
Right.
We'll never say we're extraordinary, because
I will.
That's not up to appreciate that.
Yeah.
But we can't. It's up to the customer to say whether or not you've achieved that.
Right.
And thankfully, according to the feedback we got, we checked that box. But that's the way we make snacks. And I don't believe there's another snack company using like Yeti's playbook, if you will, to make snacks.
What do you think the mindset is that is required to think, hey, I can take this ordinary snack and actually make it,
extraordinary,
10x, 100x times better than the competition? Because I think, you talk about Yeti, you talk about Shar. It's like, to your point, there's 1,000 different types of coolers, and there's 1,000 different trail mix planners, 365, you name it. There's all these brands, but, and I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting across from you, but like, this is a superior product by no comparison. So what's the mindset that, made you think I can create something that is way better than what exists already?
I didn't know if I could.
Okay.
I didn't know. I mean, it's this, we talked earlier, not for the faint of heart for some, but it takes this like enormous amount of persistence, determination, belief, that you can get there. And when you, with a lot of intention, like, this is what I'm aiming for. I believe I can get here. You keep working at it until you figure out ways, in this case, to make an extraordinary snack. And for us, it's food. Like a lot of it came down to like our ingredient sourcing. and then the recipe. I mean, it was 900 hours, 52 iterations to, so the idea was, a lot of it was to create this orchestra of flavor and texture profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So the average, take a guess what the average number of ingredients in any trail mix is. Average number of ingredients, like how many different things they have in it.
Oh, initially I was going to say 7 or 8, but then I was like, well, there's probably a bunch of added trash in some of these other brands. So I have no idea.
Well, so good old raisins and peanuts, Gorb. It's raisins, peanuts, and M&Ms. There's 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most famous iteration of it. The average is 4.
Okay.
The most we've seen from anyone else is 6.
Okay.
And we have 50% more than that. We have 9 ingredients, because I wasn't aiming for a price point,
Mm-hmm.
which is that's where the sort of what holds a lot of things back is, well, we want to make this thing and we want to make it really good, but
Right.
in this case, if it's trail mix, like, it's got to sell for $9.99 a pound.
Right.
Like, who are we to say what a customer is willing to pay for
Right.
any product, especially if it's an amazing product.
Right.
And so it wasn't like I don't mean to be callous when I say I didn't care what it cost, but I really didn't care about that. And that allowed me to try anything
Right.
to get to extraordinary. Because
Right.
I know there's a market for extraordinary. That's not an opinion.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Right.
And 2 things that are magic for brands kick in if you can reach extraordinary. People want to own it, and they want to talk about it, right? So think about, like, and not just Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be a book, a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
That you've seen an unbelievable restaurant, like you found this new restaurant that is extraordinary. You want to go there and you want to tell everybody you know about it.
Right.
That's gold for any brand of any kind. It could be an app, anything.
Right.
If it's an extraordinary version of that ordinary thing. So anyway, it was, it was literally kind of getting back to the recipe creation. So, we think we've got a unique blend,
Mm-hmm.
and then the ratios, we get a lot of feedback, oh, your ratios.
Yeah.
And that was important. So that's a lot like the whole orchestra, an orchestra of flavor and textures to create a symphony for your mouth.
I love that. So you said it took 4 years to get the recipe?
3 years on the recipe, and then I knew the recipe was finished when one of my accounts one of my outdoor, who I was already selling. So I'm product testing with my retailers who I wanted to sell it to one day.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm showing them the new line for Keen at the Outdoor Retail Trade Show, be like, hey, do you like trail mix? Would you mind trying this? Is this the best you've ever had? If what do we need to do different? What's it missing? What would you like to see?
Mm-hmm.
And then my best account was like, dude, like, it's ready. Like, if you had this available for sale, we'd put it in all 8 stores today.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, recipe done. But the recipe is just the assortment of ingredients, what's in it, and how much of each thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then occurred to me, I was like, like, I wonder if there's better versions of these 9 ingredients than what Trader Joe's sells.
Right.
Where I'd been formulating everything, just, they have everything. I was just trying different kinds of almonds and pistachios and all these different combinations of things. But that led me to a 1-year hunt to find the best of those. And that was not something I'd considered early on. But when you're aiming for extraordinary, it's like, oh my God, that might turbocharge
Right.
this recipe.
Take it to another level.
Take it to a whole nother level, and it did. You can taste the difference. Like, it is we might be one of the only snack companies in America that could tell you the names of the farms where everything that's in it came from. And we can, because I picked them.
Right.
I mean, it's literally single origin sourcing.
So how did you find, because I know in a previous discussion, I think we were talking about, cranberries from somewhere in Cape Cod, and chocolate from
this 5th generation chocolatier in San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you, and especially specifically with like nuts, now that I'm thinking this through, it's like, how did you find these sources for the ingredients?
You start rooting around, doing a lot of searching, Google searching, and talking to people. They have I discovered that there are associations for almost everything, including farmers. There's a organic cranberry growers association.
Wow.
So they have a website, so you can go there and like call people and say, hey, who's the best of in your farm? Anyway, so there were lots of things like that, and then where we were able to. I haven't been able to visit all of the farms, but it was just through a lot of then we get samples. Wanted to make sure that they were the kind of farm, I guess, that we wanted to connect with. One of the other important things was we only use organic ingredients, and that is a very over 80% of the snacks in the market don't. They use conventional ingredients because they're cheaper. It's not that they don't want to have healthier ones, but profit's a big thing.
Yeah.
And again, we were all about, I wanted this to be like a ridiculously healthy snack. And we don't add anything. There's no preservatives, no stabilizers. We don't add any sugar or fake sweeteners. We literally source these organic ingredients from these small family farms. They send them to us. We mix it, sift it, and then package it in the most sustainable packaging available.
Yeah. When it comes to, a couple questions came up in my mind as you were talking about that. One, as far as the packaging goes, how do you make sure the ratio is even in each bag and tube?
It gets harder on the smaller amounts, right? Yeah. But it's not. They're not all. We hand pack it too. I mean, we mix in batches of we make about 70 pounds at a time, and then I don't like those little bits in the dust that you find in lots of chips and other kinds of snacks. That drives me crazy. So, so we came up with another step that I don't think anybody does that makes trail mix, but we sift it. So I found, and that was a trial and error to find it. Literally, the only thing we could find that works the way we do it was a fry basket with the appropriate sized little square holes in it, so not too much of the good stuff leaked out. So we wanted to sift out the smaller bits, but not and keep in the good stuff, if you will. So we sift it 2 pounds at a time to get all that out, and then the ratios vary a little bit. But everyone always, all 9 ingredients are very well represented.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other question, I feel like in talking to people who are entrepreneurs and trying to start up their business, there's no secret that most businesses require some sort of monetary investment up front to buy ingredients or buy equipment to mix the trail mix or whatever it may be. You're getting the best of the best ingredients to make this extraordinary trail mix. Has there been a huge money spend throughout, or was there a huge money spend in that process of figuring out what's the right stuff? And I'm just curious what kind of capital it takes to run that sort of business.
That's a really important question. It definitely takes capital. Some are going to make choices, CPG or other kinds of companies are going to make, certain things that they're willing to or think are going to be good investments to make. Like I thought it was, I kind of spent my whole career, my adult career, representing brands. That became, and the American people are very brand conscious. So the brand development was a big part of it to me. So I invested in, with a very small agency, half a world away in Australia, as a matter of fact. That's a whole nother story. Wow. But they helped us create the brand, the brand mark, our Bear and Bird logo, the color, the font. They helped us develop this plastic-free paper tube, that we use. That's we've won international design awards for that tube. And we're pretty sure it's the only trail mix in America not packaged in a stand-up plastic bag. We keep looking, so we haven't found any that. So it's a very unique thing, and that lines up with my belief system around creating a brand, which is, I think it's important if you're creating something that you want to bring to market, a new thing, that you need to be one of 3 things: first, best, or different. I think it's important to ask if you're meeting any of those qualifications if you have a new thing, because unless you've created a new category like I'm looking at some koozies up there. Like if it's a new, like you didn't invent the koozie.
Right.
Like what about yours is going to be different? Like if it's not first, best, or different, why are they going to buy yours compared to all the other ones that are already out on the market?
Right.
Like what's your point of difference? Like why? Like you need to know the why. So that's something that's been very packed into, how we do things as well.
Right. First, best, or different.
Yes.
And so I imagine that finding that agency in Australia, like money goes into that stuff.
Yes.
So
Yeah, to get back to that question, it's I launched Share when I turned 61. I Googled it. Back then, I'm pretty sure that's 21 years older than the average age of a CPG entrepreneur.
wow.
But that in this case gave me, I had a lot more experience that for me I thought was extremely valuable. I didn't know until I launched the company how valuable it was.
Right.
But now as I'm looking back in the 5 years since we launched, like, wow, that was insanely valuable. And everybody, like your own, your set of experiences are yours. And no one else has that.
Right.
And it's different from everyone else. And so, lean into that, because what feels normal to you, and it did to me, I didn't think that anything I had done was that extraordinary or different, or who cares.
Right.
But it was incredibly important and useful. But again, getting back to the finance part, I started saving as a young adult, like when I was in my mid-20s. We set up our retirement plan and saved as much as we could, so that by the time I got to when I was launching Share, I had funds that I could apply to launching the company, because and that's never kind of goes away, like the need for capital. Like if we if you grow from whatever it is, like 250,000 to 500,000 next year, like you finish the year 250 and you want to grow to 500, you have to buy all that before you make money off of it. You have to buy $500,000 worth of ingredients, $500,000 worth of packaging, 500, like all of it. You have to spend the money on labor to make it.
Right.
And then when you sell it to somebody, on average, like 30 to 60 days later, you get paid for it, but you have to front all of that capital. And so then from 500 could be $1 million, it could be 5 million from there. Like the need for capital
never goes away.
Never goes away.
Yeah.
And hopefully, companies eventually get to profitability, and then they've got but oftentimes they can be really profitable, but still if they're growing fast, like the needs for capital are crazy challenging.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it a scary idea to you that like I have to do this? Like, yeah, sure, I don't want to spend X amount, but like I have to do this if I want this product to actually be on the shelves and to actually get into the hands of customers. What was it like facing that reality, whether you want to call it a harsh reality or not, but just the reality of like, yeah, I believe in this. I've spent hundreds upon hundreds of hours developing this. If I want it to explode in the way that I know it can, this is what it takes.
Yeah, it was those. So from a financial standpoint, it's been an incremental. Like I didn't have to kind of take everything, the pot, if you will, and spend all of it. It was, kind of taking small portions of it, month after month, kind of investing in my own company, if you will, and so it wasn't. There was never kind of a risk where it was like, wow, 6 months in, I'm not gonna.
Right.
I still need more investment, and I'm not gonna have any money left.
Right.
Thankfully, but and again, it's different for different founders are going to have a different risk. Where they want to apply those funds. Some may think it's worthless to apply any to marketing or branding.
Right.
So look, I don't have a money tree growing out back, and so I've been really careful and very thoughtful about how and where we invest, and you just got to try to make. And I've made some mistakes.
Yeah.
I've made definitely not crazy, costly ones that would sink us, but just money is like, wow, I flushed that down the toilet. I'm not getting that back.
Right.
That's not a good feeling.
Right.
It's kind of hard to avoid.
Yeah. So I had a guest once who he owns a bagel shop, and we were talking about in his journey to figuring out how to do it, he noticed that everybody's using the same equipment, same ingredients, etc. Is there equipment that you had to buy and that you use to mix the trail mix, or is this all kind of, to your point, manual labor, exact ratios, somebody's mixing it with love, so to speak?
Yeah, it depends on on scale more than anything else, about how much equipment. I mean, if it's a food or beverage thing, the journey is very similar in CPG. Like, you start making this thing at home in your kitchen, and then you're like, I think I'm gonna launch this thing and turn it into a brand. So then you have to start making it in a commercial kitchen, and you have a small, usually a very small group of retailers that are going to buy it, or maybe you're selling it online, but it takes time to become something usually, and then so it's still not a lot that you're making, and then over time, year over year, it starts getting to be more, and then doing all that by hand the way you used to do in your kitchen, but now in a commercial kitchen gets to be like, this isn't working. So, but one of the things for us, different than a lot, so we have shelf-stable ingredients, don't require any refrigeration. We're mixing nuts and fruit. Like, to be operationally simple is a beautiful thing. So we have a very, very uncomplicated operational structure. Like, it's just, we don't have to invest, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We may someday when we want, be making, mixing and packaging 1,000 pounds an hour, but
right.
We're not there yet. So we're able to do what we do. It's not, and I had one recipe. Like, no one really does that either. I mean, I launched with a new brand with one thing. Right. Like, most new brands, even if they launch, like, well, we got these 4 recipes. Here's this new thing. And for the first 3 years, we only had the original trail mix available, but we were aiming it to be, our goal was this might just be trail mix, but we hope that this is the best trail mix you've ever experienced.
Right. And so at what point, you said 3 years in, so 3 years in you were like, hey, we've established ourselves when it comes to the original flavor. What can we do with tropical? Or, you've got a few other savory.
Well, so I knew really almost from day one that, so we're a farm-to-table snack food company. We're not just a trail mix company. This was just the first snack. It's almost like, again, going back to Yeti, like, they have coolers, but then, they built this extraordinary reputation for making a cooler and being a really cool brand. Like, think about it. They made coolers cool.
Yeah.
Like, that just blows my mind.
Everybody wanted a Yeti. Like,
a cooler.
Everybody.
Cooler. But it was because of what kind of cooler it was that everybody wants to own it. Everybody wants to talk about it.
Yep.
Right? Those are the two things that were gold. So, but then they came out with double steel vacuum insulated drinkware. They didn't invent that. Clean Canteen, Corksicle, Hydro Flask, all these other brands had been making it for years. It took them about 8 minutes to own it because of the reputation they had for coolers. Their fan base was like, oh my God, Yeti's making something else. It almost really didn't matter what it was because it was Yeti. And if they did it the Yeti way, it's going to be another extraordinary version of an ordinary thing. Right. So then they're like kings of that. And so using that same mentality, we then, if we're able to execute at the level that I intend to and make extraordinary versions of these of our ordinary snacks, then a bar, like, we will or granola or all these other sort of, well, that makes sense, you're a snack company,
right?
Of course they would make this sort of natural line extension. So we have a whole playbook of snacks we intend to launch.
Wow. Yeah.
And so tropical and savory, I knew almost within the first year that 3, because power of 3,
Mm-hmm.
it's a thing. I didn't know it was a thing until I launched Share, but Google it if you haven't ever. It's an amazing concept, the power of 3. So, and I didn't know about that but I knew I wanted just 2 more recipes.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I know about the power of 3, I can see, I think I like I kind of in my head, it was working on me.
Right.
And that's why I wanted 3, was because of the power of 3.
Right.
So tropical and savory, we spent 2 years working on, and launched those in June last year. So
Okay.
those weren't just, and it's not a savory version of the original or a tropical version of the original. They are standalone tropical recipe. What's the best way we could make tropical, or the best way we could make a savory recipe?
Are those both 9 ingredients as well?
No. Tropical has 7, and the savory, it's savory is a little tougher because we consider one of the ingredients this 7-spice seasoning.
Okay.
I mean, it's savories. I mean, they're both very unique ingredients. The original recipe is kind of a little bit of both, sweet and savory, kind of a centrist.
Mm-hmm.
Savory is not sweet at all, and tropical is not savory at all. So they're designed to bookend
I got you.
the original.
Okay. I'm going to have to try them. I see them on the shelf all the time, and I just love the original so much. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that.
It's the original is our bestseller because it's a centrist, and
Yeah.
because we've had it's been in the market longer, and it's the only one out of the 3 that has that gourmet dark chocolate in it,
Yeah.
which is an amazing ingredient. We don't put too much of it in. It's still a healthy snack. It's not. I didn't want it too desserty.
Right.
But it is an amazing dark chocolate, which is a superfood.
Yeah. Keep that heart healthy. So it's what you just said is really interesting about, Share is a snack company. It's
right.
not just trail mix. And I know, I see the clusters now as well. So you've got a whole playbook of other stuff as well.
That we intend, when the time's
Yeah.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
remember operationally, every single new thing you add complicates things more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's and we're not a household brand yet.
Right.
I mean, my aspiration is to share, our healthy, delicious, and ethical snacks with the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever we are available for sale, our goal is to become, one of their most popular and best-selling snacks.
Mm-hmm.
Not popular like in a popularity contest, popular in the way that Patagonia is popular.
Right.
That kind of popular, because of the kind of company we are. Share's like a 3-legged stool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one leg the product, but the other 2 legs that we care equally as much about our conservation and sustainability, and that's a very, very unique point of view as a snack company, as I've come to find.
Yeah, I was gonna go into talking about that next. I know sustainability, conservation, like these are 2 things that are incredibly important to the brand. Where does that specifically come from? And I know, we've talked about the cost of the plastic packaging that exists versus, a tube. But again, it's like this recurring theme of doing things the right way. I'm not concerned with how much it costs or how long it's going to take. I care most about creating this extraordinary product with packaging that is good for the environment and just doing things the right way. So talk to me a little bit about that, I guess the root of that part of the brand and the product.
Yeah, so I'm an outdoor guy, and a lot of outdoor people who spend a lot of time in the outdoors, or the outdoor industry for sure, where I spent my entire adult career before launching Share. The outdoor industry as a whole, is probably arguably the leading industry around conservation and sustainability. Like you just learn to care about the planet. Like you appreciate the earth for what it is. It's our home, and then over time, the human race has, I guess for a lack of a better way of describing it, trashed the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And we're the first generation in human history to experience the effects of climate change. Like all the humans that have ever existed, millions of years, and we're the first generation to experience the effects of climate change, and we're going to be the only one that can do something about it. to fix it, because we can't pass that off to, another 30 or 50 years down the road. Anyway, so that's kind of daunting to me. Anyway, so it starts with intention. Like, to be a sustainable brand starts with intention. You have to, want to be sustainable and care about it. And so was in my personal makeup. And, I had, again, outdoor industry played a huge role. I grew up around companies like Patagonia, and they've been the North Star for almost every, not just outdoor brand. They again were the most respected brand in America of any kind.
Right.
Patagonia, again, they're the North Star they were my North Star for sure. We hope someday to be like them. But we're executing every day to be like them. It just takes time to build that. But that's our intention. And so, we're members of the Conservation Alliance, which is a U.S.-based nonprofit for conservation, and we donate 20% of our net profits back to them.
That's a big percentage, right?
It is. We're the only company that's a member that has that ongoing pledge. But that can make a big difference down the road.
For sure.
If you like the outdoor place, so their mission is to preserve and protect outdoor places and wild spaces. So if you like going to national parks or the Green Belt or around town lake, they want to make sure that your great grandchildren can enjoy those same places in pristine condition. And so, and we care a lot about that. And that's a nonprofit that was created by the outdoor industry. So we're members of and donate 20% of our net profits to them. We're members of 1% for the Planet, a global version of that, and way more, more well known. On Earth Day this year, we celebrated our 3rd anniversary as a climate neutral certified company, meaning we're completely carbon neutral. And the thing I'm probably the most proud of is, and what I'm going to say next, is something that over 98% of the snack companies in America can't say. All of our packaging is 100% plastic free.
Wow.
All of it. And that's a really important thing, because single-use plastics are choking the planet. And we now know that 95%, from the most recent study done in October last year, 95% of all the plastic that's ever been made has never been recycled. That's kind of jarring.
Yeah.
82% of it is in landfills and waterways, 12% incinerated, and only 5% has ever been recycled. So that's a failed thing.
Right.
And 40% of the single-use plastics are from the food industry. And so we now know, we kind of made that choice early on because it was, for us, the right thing to do versus what's convenient. But now we're on a mission to help transform the industry, because we're proof it can be done different.
Right. That's wild. Those statistics. So what was the 40% stat one more time?
That's of all the single-use plastics, 40% of it's from the food industry. Okay,
yeah. So these bags, the tube, I know, so the tube is, you get 20 uses out of the tube, is that right?
No, this plastic-free paper tube, if you used it, it's one of the most sustainable snack packages in America. Using it once, literally, if you just use this one time, it's made out of paper. It's just going to biodegrade. Even the ink used is a bio-based ink. And it's also hyper convenient, like side pocket of your backpack, your car cup holder, sitting at your desk, working, even the lid. If you want to share some with somebody, because sharing. But what turbocharges its already kind of gold medal status is it's refillable for a year.
That's what
over
it was.
A year.
Yeah.
A year of refills. So we just talked about recycling's not happening. Composting is better, because that's organic matter that goes back into the soil at least. But only 10% of what can be composted is getting composted. So those two things are just very problematic. So we believe the key to a sustainable future is create less waste, create less trash in the first place. So reuse and refill is really the magic key to the sustainable future we all want. And so the fact that we geek out on this, like the fact that you can refill this already hyper sustainable tube for over a year, it creates so then we have these bigger bags.
Right.
This is the smallest big one. This 11-ounce bag will refill it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
We have a 2.5-pound bag. Also, all of these plastic free, completely compostable bags. The 2.5-pound version of that will refill it 11 times. That's 11 less tubes in the waste stream.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a fan of the brand, as much as we love this tube, we only want you to buy one of them.
Right.
And then save it and buy the bigger bags, 20% cheaper per serving.
Yep.
So the consumer wins. And then Planet wins.
Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. It's not just a win-win. Literally, everybody wins.
Right.
It's even a better margin for the retailer because it's bulk. It's like this kind of beautiful system.
Yeah. So the one thing that we haven't really talked that much about that I think is super important and awesome is the name Shar. Talk a little bit about the journey to the name Shar.
Oh my gosh! If I had a dollar for every hour I spent, not a dollar. If I had a quarter for every hour I spent on the name, I'd be a multi-millionaire. I'm not exaggerating. So here's one of the things, at least that occurs to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you ever thought about launching a product?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so you have an idea for a thing. Maybe it's an app. It could be a line of shoes, athletic wear, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even really matter the category. When you don't know for sure that you're going to launch when you first come up with the idea for launch. At least I didn't. It wasn't like, I thought, wow, maybe I could turn this into a brand someday. But that was 4 years.
Right.
It was actually almost 5, really, by the time I launched, 2013 to 2018, before I actually launched.
Right.
But yeah, and almost the next question back then in 2013 was, what are you going to call it? And so you need at least a working name.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it couldn't just be like, it's Trail Mix.
Yeah.
Well, but it's my trail. Like, it's, so the name was so excruciating.
Yeah.
And I had, what's in a name? I developed a matrix, 4 boxes to check that I thought would create the name I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, the first box was 4 letters, 1 syllable. Shorter names are more powerful. Yeti, Nike. It's, and so 4 letters, 1 syllable, way more memorable.
Mm-hmm.
If this was called Pete's Mountain Mix, like, you might have seen it at Whole Foods or something and gone home and really liked it, and you wanted to tell somebody about it. But it was like, it was some trail mix. I can't remember what it was.
Right.
It's just, with a lot of words and syllables, the more there, the more forgettable potentially it's going to become.
Right.
So the more compact it is, the better, I thought.
Right.
So that was really important. Domain available. Box 2, you need to have a domain.
Mm-hmm.
Box 3 was, I didn't want to box myself in. I wanted a category neutral name for this snack because I saw, healthy snacks could be available in a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted if it was Pete's Mountain Mix and it was in an REI store, it might look really appropriate. But in a yoga studio or in a boutique or in a hotel, mini
Wasn't
bar,
going to make sense.
Well, not that it wouldn't
as
make
much.
sense. It might be like, if you're not an outdoor person, you might think, that's not for me because it says mountain mix. Not really into mountains.
Right.
Anyway, so I didn't want to be boxed in. I wanted literally a name that was so neutral that it would look just as appropriate in Whole Foods as it did in REI, as it did in a yoga studio, as it did in a office snack room or a hotel minibar.
Right.
So category neutral was third box. Fourth box, which was most definitely the hardest, was I wanted an emotional concept that was the name of our brand.
Wow. Yeah.
And so, and that I think plays the biggest role because consumer purchasing drives our economy like it does almost every economy around the globe.
Mm-hmm.
I think, 80% of our GDP is people buying stuff.
Wow.
And so then when you break that down into needs and wants, like, we don't need a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a lot of things that we want, and what converts it from a want to a need is emotion. Like, if you need a new iPhone tomorrow, guess where you're going to be at 9 a.m. when the Verizon starts? Like, if I need a new phone or I need a new car, like, when you think about a lot, it's, that's just how it occurred to me, was this very emotion, like emotion is a huge potential benefit. So using, Kind Bars,
Yep.
first time I came across their brand 20 years ago, I remember thinking to myself the day I saw them in a grocery store, it's like, wow, they must be nice guys.
Right.
And it must be good ingredients. It says so right on the wrapper. Kindness.
Yep.
And so that was trying to, replicate that idea with Share. And so Share wasn't ownable. That was 4 years and over 1,200 names before I was able to check all 4 boxes.
Unbelievable.
And there were some, a couple of key moments that sort of kick in the gut.
Yeah.
Because I had a couple of working names. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad this shirt doesn't say Pete's Nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the last working name.
Close. You got 2 4-letter words, but might not have landed.
Just when you stop and think about it.
Yeah.
It was the T-shirt might have been I Heart Pete's Nuts. Could have got a lot of feedback on that.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah. No doubt.
So I was and I knew it wasn't the name, but it was just something. It was the working name that I was sort of stuck with until, we found Share, which we mean Share. That wasn't an ownable word, and I couldn't trademark it. So the workaround was to spell it phonetically. So with the accent over the A, it's a long A. It's pronounced Share, and that's precisely what we mean.
And that was the whole foundation of like sharing the snack, but
Yes.
sharing stories and sharing
our good
environment and just sharing.
It's one of the oldest words in the English language, and the most fundamental way that all 8 billion humans on the planet connect is around sharing. We can literally own that and talk about sharing our healthy snacks, sharing our good fortune, donating back to the Conservation Alliance. Just how sharing is caring, what you learn when you go to kindergarten. The first day. It's being able to attach this deeply emotional concept to the name of our company,
right,
and then integrate it into that with all we do.
I love it. So my final question, and the question that I ask all my guests, is if you had to leave the listeners with a piece of advice, whether entrepreneurial or just life in general, what would that piece of advice be?
I'm a power of 3 guy.
Yeah.
Go for it. It definitely takes a lot of courage to start something. It definitely did me. And then it's going to take a lot of persistence and determination. Just know that going into it, and just just every day get up and just keep after it. There are no shortcuts.
Well, Pete, I appreciate you so much for joining me this evening. This has been awesome. So thank you.
You're welcome. No, it's great to be here.
And to the listeners, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Walk On Mentality podcast, and we will see you on the next one.